Welcome to the Customer Wins podcast, where business leaders discuss their secrets and techniques for helping their customers succeed and in turn grow their business.
Hi, I'm Rich Walker, the host of the Customer Wins, where I talk to business leaders about how they help their customers win and how their focus on customer experience leads to growth. Some of my past guests have included Cameron Howe of Investapal, Parker Entz of Jump, and John Corcoran of Rise 25. This is a special episode in my Perspective series where I talk with leaders outside of financial services who bring different views and experiences to this show. Today, I'm speaking with Matt Goebel, the CEO of Woven. And today's episode is brought to you by Quick, the leader in enterprise forms processing. When your business relies upon processing forms, don't waste your team's valuable time manually reviewing the forms. Instead, get Quick. Using our Form Extract API, simply submit your completed forms and get back clean, context-rich data that reduces manual reviews to only 1 out of 1,000 submissions. Visit quickforms.com to get started. Now, before I introduce today's guest, I want to give a big thank you to Joseph Loria, who has been on the show as well. Go check out his website, which is called retentioncx.com. He specializes in helping companies maximize their revenue retention. Man, we all need that. All right, I'm excited to talk to Matt. Matt Goebel, CEO of Woven, has leveraged over 15 years of franchising experience as a franchisor, franchisee, and supplier to address significant industry challenges, including disjointed communication, fragmented operations, and underperforming software solutions. In 2017, he founded Woven to streamline operations, empower frontline employees, and enhance collaboration across the franchising ecosystem. Motivated by the struggles of mom-and-pop franchisees overwhelmed by daily operations, Matt aimed to create a solution that alleviates these burdens, enabling franchisees and franchisors to focus on their core passions and business goals. Matt, welcome to the Customer Wins.
Thanks, Rich. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure, man. I'm excited to get your perspective today. For those who haven't heard this podcast before, I love to talk to business leaders about what they're doing to help their customers win, how they built and deliver a great customer experience, and the challenges they've had growing their own company. So Matt, let's understand your business a little bit better. How does your company help people?
Yeah, absolutely, Rich. So Woven was actually built to help multi-unit franchisees, right? And so after a decade or so in the consulting world, helping different multi-unit business owners solve various problems through custom projects, kind of became apparent to me that they all had the same problems, and it kind of stems from the nature of their business. They are in a unique situation where they have many geographically dispersed teams, and specifically these dispersed teams are hourly, traditionally deskless workers that are hard to connect with, that are hard to get all on the same page. And in this industry, what you find is a lot of siloed, almost tribal knowledge forms, location to location. And that really hurts when you're trying to scale an organization that's running consistently, delivering the same brand experience, so forth. So when you think of franchising, although this doesn't always happen exclusively in franchising, it's just most commonly found in franchising, you walk into a Planet Fitness, and when you walk into that Planet Fitness, right, like you expect it to be roughly the same as every other Planet Fitness experience that you have. Now, all those Planet Fitnesses, the 2,600 or so across the country, are all owned by different franchisees. And it is difficult for those franchisees, even within their own organization, to keep everybody on the same page. So through my consulting career, I just saw the same problems occurring over and over. And I wanted to bring the solution to this unique group of business owners that allows them to keep all of their people, their operations, and their facility management. It's kind of all that unsexy back office stuff, keeping it all in one place instead of all over the place with a bunch of different platforms and tools. And at the same time, having spent over a decade on the consultative side, fractional CIO and advisory, strategic type roles, I was a little sick of the tech industry abusing the franchise, always overselling, under-delivering, not supporting. It's kind of a joke, but at the same time, it's blunt, but operators are fantastic at operating. They're some of the hardest working people I've ever met in any industry segment. they're terrible at adopting technology, especially terrible at adopting technology at scale across the complex organization. So one of the other things I wanted to do was lean into that, like be a partner, figure out that, yes, we can build a great tool, we can build great technology, but marry it up and meet them where they are, understanding that in the operations world, they're putting out a fire every day or every hour of every day. They don't have time to go through organizational change and to do all that is required. So that was the other second half of how we help, or why Woven is we wanted to bring an actual partnership to this, which says, yes, here's a tool, but we're going to teach you how to use the tool. We're going to lean in and invest how you're going to get value out of this, and then train your people, proactively follow up continuously, and make sure that they're seeing that. So ultimately, it's just about helping these organizations grow, scale, and be more profitable in doing so.
Man, I love it. There's a lot to talk about here. I got to share something though with you. I think the only people who adopt technology well are technologists and people who love technology in general, and they've seen something that is going to change their lives. Like that one thing that their friend was using that has given them all their time back. They're like, okay, I'm going to do that too. But in general, people don't like change. That's the bottom line. Like tech requires change. And being uncomfortable in a bad process is still more comfortable than changing is.
100% true.
There's a lot of things.
It's true.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things in what you're doing that I think play across the financial services world, because financial services, they'll build offices in all these different locations. Like I know a team where they're more focused on one geography, like the West Coast, for example, but I also know companies that are nationwide, international. So I think they have similar problems. How is it that by standardizing on the technology, it actually makes it work better at the different locations and how you get to train people? Why is the technology the footprint and not the policy manual or the brand or something else?
Yeah, and I think that's so one unique distinction within the industry we serve, which is that multi-location kind of, again, deskless hourly worker, right? Is that they don't have a company email address. They're not connected to their company. They don't have a computer or a laptop that they can sit in front of at their desk all day. I mean, you and I as information workers, or your traditional office worker, I don't know if you're like me, but I mean, I at any given time, I'll have 30 plus tabs open on my browser, and I'm logged into a dozen or more different SaaS products that we use at Woven. And that is honestly the way the tech, VC fueled tech company kind of thing has come up for like office workers, right? Is we are almost subconsciously trained to have all these different tools that do different things. And sure, there's integrations that will automate some data. And obviously AI is changing a lot of this right now. We won't get down that slippery slope. But the point is that works for us somewhat. It's still annoying if my password manager isn't fully logged in and it can't just log me into the next system. I have to type something. At the end of the day, it's not that burdensome. Changing gears into the world we serve, right, is when you ask an hourly college person that's maybe engaged, maybe not engaged in their job that they're just earning some beer money for, whatever.
It's not their passion.
Not exactly a career most of these times, right? Every login you give them, every time you're like, hey, remember this username and this username and this password, every time you add another login to do their job, to perform their job duties, you greatly diminish their engagement in those systems. And what ends up happening is that location A might have a manager that's really diligent about getting everybody to log in. Location B is a little more lax and some of the tools are used. Location C is not at all because they just had manager turnover, and on down the line. And by the time you scale this past 20, 50 locations, a lot of our work's in like enterprise scale sizes, like 50 units and above, right? It's game over. Like you're not getting your front line to log into 4 to 6 different places to do their job. You're just not. You're going to get lucky to get to log into 1 or 2 places. That's always going to be their schedule and clock in, and maybe the point of sale to do transactions. And that's about it. That's the extent that you're going to get their eyeballs. And so these companies will push out your policies, your SOPs, hey, this is coming up, this promotion, announcements, communications. And it largely goes unread. It goes unnoticed because they're not engaging in all these various different systems that to you and I are secondhand. It's no problem. Mm-hmm. But to that segment of the workforce, it's just different, right? And so consolidation is foundational to this world, and that's what Woven brings. It brings consolidation to, I think we're up to like 34 different components spanning that people, operations, and facilities. So these frontline employees, those that are actually running the business day to day in the field, interacting with your customers, keeping the lights on, those frontline leaders juggling all the fires and all that stuff, they're the ones that are getting the benefit of lower burnout, better efficiency, productivity, better passive accountability for the higher ups. They're just getting everything in one place. And it really is a game changer for these organizations.
Man, you just reminded me to stay in my lane. If I wanted to own a car wash and I couldn't slack the person what I want them to do, have to physically walk out and go talk to them, that changes everything. You're right. I hadn't thought about that. Man, so what are some of the most common components that your system is standardizing? You said 34. I don't know if I want a whole list, but like,
no, it's just across their people. So how do you communicate with and disseminate information to your people, keeping them all on the same page, kind of like that operational HR? How do they do their job, communicating with them, scheduling them, they show up to work, time and attendance, things like that. Operations is call this the drumbeat of the organization. It is, what is your morning checklist and your closing checklist and your every Wednesday checklist? And when you hire somebody or terminate somebody, like at scale, right, you need to have these standard operational drumbeats in everything that you do. And then how are you auditing that? How are you going into these various locations and confirming through objective scoring that they are staying to the standards, and then managing that through SOPs, policies, et cetera. And then on the third pillar, it is around facilities. So each one of these organizations also has the unique, you mentioned car washes, we do quite a bit of business with car washes, is they have very expensive, very complex facilities, right? A lot of equipment,
right,
both in the tunnel and outside the tunnel in their grounds. And all of that needs to be maintained because guess what? If that vacuum has no suck, that customer is likely not coming back, right? I mean, so it's down to little things like that within each industry segment or in the gym space, right? That treadmill, that's your favorite treadmill in that spot or whatever. If that's broken for an extended period of time, you likely are canceling your membership and moving to another gym. And so it's this ability to maintain your facilities, again, at scale, geographically dispersed across many states in most cases, that really becomes critical to maintaining that customer guest experience and doing so consistently.
Yeah. So that might explain the QR codes I see at the gym on all the machines. They're scanning.
100%. Right? Yeah, 100%.
Okay. So look, in financial services, when I talk to people, oftentimes they have multiple customer segments they have to think about. So if they're the enterprise, they're thinking about their advisors as the customer, who's then thinking about the investor as their customer. And they're also thinking about the back office as their customer because they're using the systems. So how do you look at customers? How do you decide whose experience you're trying to optimize for?
Yeah, similar to your example right there, like we have a number of different customers. We generally try to group them into 3 buckets. Our biggest customer base is the frontline. So about 85% of our users are hourly deskless workers frontline. We are optimizing for them and the fact that Woven has both an iOS and an Android app that it leans very heavy onto like almost a consumer app. Again, the demographic in the segment of the workforce that is in these roles is very transactional in nature, right? I think the last I saw was like roughly 6 weeks was the average span before turnover. And so information, it is, you want to engage them. It has to be clean, simple, easy. So we have a whole persona worked up where that base of our customer is really just about like, how do we get them in and out as quickly as possible, get them what they need, and make it an enjoyable experience. You then have the middle segment, which is the frontline leadership. So these are the ones that honestly Woven is built for. They're taking the most weight off their shoulders, reducing the most amount of burnout. And this is the customer segment that is in both our native apps from time to time, but also starting to use our desktop experience, our web version, which is allowing them to do management functionalities, reporting, managing large lists of things, updating, SOPs, policies, things like that. And then you get into the corporate, and this is like the top 2%. So a lot of these large enterprise organizations have corporate office teams. And these are more, again, traditional office workers at this point. They're not using day-to-day basis, but they are getting a lot of data and value out of Woven from the product that we can produce for them. So they're definitely in it more for reporting, dashboards. Ironically, this also happens to be our decision maker. So we do a lot for them because while they don't use our product, they're the ones that make the decisions and sign the checks. So a lot of our efforts focus in that middle tier of keeping that frontline leadership team happy, and also the top. Of course, most businesses in the enterprise space are like that. You got to keep your stakeholders happy, even if they're not exactly using your product all the time.
But it's a hard balance because so you've got the top level, like you said, the 2%, and it's the same with my business, right? There's a small group of users who want to administer controls and decide configurations. And if they don't have those capabilities, they're leaning hard on our customer service team to make it happen, or they're very vocal about it because you're right, they're decision makers. But then you've got all the way out to the front line where users are complaining, it can't do this, it can't do that, and it got this wrong, or why can't these two things just talk to each other? And we're in this constant battle here at Quick. Who do we serve first? Which idea gets the most precedence or the most effort put into it? How do you guys prioritize? How do you figure out where to put your resources to make your product better?
Yeah, I mean, we give a lot of weight to that middle group. We give a lot of weight because, again, in our world, to our customers we serve, right, it is taking a bit of burden or reducing burnout, increasing the longevity of that frontline leader is probably one of the biggest impacts Woven can make on like a long-term longitudinal basis for our customers. And what I mean by that is when you're say you're an organization that has 50 locations of a gym or a car wash, right? Losing and replacing a specific location manager is highly disruptive, right? The culture of that location changes. The operational execution of that location changes. You have to either promote from within if you have somebody or drop somebody new in. And it's a very difficult, very disruptive thing. I would almost liken it in the financial world to like the head advisor at an office just like quits. And that office becomes a little disrupted for temporarily, right? My wife was a recruiter at Northwestern Mutual for a number of years and, had her like the head office guy that was, calling the shots and running it. And when he left and was replaced, it was disruptive for a number of months. And it's exacerbated when you're at that deskless employee level, right? So the longer we can keep those people happy, it does percolate up to the fact that they're not complaining. They're actually loving Woven because it's saving them time. And as long as we get enough of that to percolate up to the upper echelons, we are typically winning. The other thing I will say is that while we do enhancements and listen to product kind of direction from that group most frequently, we're proactive in the sense that most of our enterprise accounts we're talking to bi-weekly or monthly, and we are meeting with that upper tier to listen to what they're hearing from their field. So we don't allow a year or a quarter to go by before we're hearing from our customer that like their field team hates something or wants something new. Like, I mean, we're getting that almost in real time, and we are responding almost in real time. We do releases every 2 weeks to address certain key critical things, and are always dripping out new enhancements that people are requesting. So that's part of that, just leaning into the customer and making sure that they feel heard. It's actually one of our promises that we make to them at the very beginning.
Man, honestly, it's inspiring, Matt, because I never feel like we listen enough. We try hard, but I don't know that we ever can listen enough to our customers. And part of it is, in my world, oftentimes a customer will implement our solution from the back end. Like it's an API solution. They build the front end themselves. And now it's really their front end. It's not us. So they only come to us when they're designing something on the front end that needs something on the back end to support it. And man, I had a customer for 10 years who would only talk to me once a year. And that conversation always went the same. We're happy, no changes, nothing to tell you. Okay. But I love the customers who are very vocal and will say, hey, what about this? And what about that? And this is our friction. And those conversations are just pure gold. So I'm kind of curious on another level then, if you're, how do I ask this exactly? You're listening to all this feedback. You're obviously getting new ideas from customers. How do you, as a product owner and leader, innovate beyond those questions and see the future beyond what customers are asking for?
Yeah, it's that's a great one. So I mean, we obviously have tools and prioritization lists, and we're not exactly how's the analogy where everybody gets an equal vote. I mean, obviously our biggest customers, revenue speaks. I mean, they do get the most attention. So that probably accounts for, I would say, between 30 to 40% of our development effort is spent in just continuously addressing requests. We do about 160 to 180 enhancements that are customer requested every year.
Wow.
And so some are tiny, some are bigger, but at the end of the day, it is our promise to continuously be tweaking and refining to help really dial in the solution to meet the needs of what our customers and their employees are experiencing as business changes, as the employment workforce changes and as needs change, right?
Mm-hmm.
The other 60 to 70%, right, is spent in actual product. So I'm a technical founder, and it is a blessing and a curse in a technology company because, we have probably an excessive amount of product, and at the same time, it's also great because we solve a lot of problems. That's kind of falls on me right now. I mean, it kind of falls on me to be forward-looking. I think there's a famous quote by Henry Ford that was like, if you ask somebody what they want, they would have said a faster horse or something like that, not a car. Yeah. I'd probably butchered that quote, but it's something along those lines, right? And so I think right now this question's very applicable because there's a lot going on with AI right now. I mean, I'm sure you've heard of AI at this point, agentic AI, agent-to-agent stuff, and blah, blah, blah. It's all over the place. The hype is extreme. What I'll say, though, is that it definitely swept over the office working world, right? The information worker first. Our industries that we serve weren't as affected by it, right? Deskless workers that are physically still doing things were less affected by the initial wave of hype. But we are starting to see now, as the technologies are standardized, we have all these ideas about what we want to do with this new technology in our product. And we've been bringing it to our customers, asking them, hey, what about this? And they just didn't know enough yet to give us valuable feedback, right? It was like, that sounds cool. Unsure if it would add value or if they would pay for it. And now we're finally reaching that crossroads with our industry segment where they're starting to understand it better to give us valuable feedback. So to answer your question, right, how do we do this? It's all through the relationships, the partnerships that we have, in the sense that we're doing this together with them, right? We don't have a crystal ball. I'm not trying to genie this behind some magic curtain. It really is about, here are some ideas. Here are some things we are thinking about doing. And, being collaborative with our customer base to understand, they're the ones actually in the trenches. They're the ones actually using our tool day to day and understanding, how much would it save them? How much would it help them? And then we take that feedback and progress and just kind of increment.
You said, but you didn't say something that I think is an important ingredient in what you said. You implied it. You have a keen interest in their world, and you therefore are thinking ahead. Plus, you have an interest in technology and AI and what's developing, and you're putting those two things together to even present back to the customer. Because the way I see it is, you can talk to 100 customers and hear 100 different things, but in that 100 things are patterns. And you as the technologist see those patterns, and then you combine them with other things going on like AI and figure out a way to solve it. And now it becomes a totally innovative and unique idea. Is that a fair assessment? Do you think that's right?
And I would just emphasize the fact that the customer collaboration there is what's key, right? Because as a technologist or in technology, right, it is so easy for us to get trapped in our own insular groupthink of look at this really cool hammer that just came out. I need to go find nails. The whole world becomes a nail that you just want to start going around swinging this hammer on. And the reality is your customer doesn't think the same way, right? The customer doesn't really care about that hammer because maybe they need a screwdriver or something else, right? Like they have a different problem that the hammer isn't going to solve. And so I think that that's part of it is that is overlooked by technology companies. And it's rampant right now where they're like, we have AI. And if they do or not is arbitrary. It's mostly marketing.
Right.
But at the end of the day, right, like they're swinging hammers all over the place. And there's been a lot of recent studies. I don't have any to quote off the top of my head, but I've been fascinated by these studies coming out that are showing that globally AI's had very little actual impact on work so far, just kind of validating that while the technology will impact, it's just not mature enough yet to be having the impact that the hype is building it up to, right? It will level back out. The hype will come down a little bit. Its actual value add will come up to meet it. Just like any technology, this one's just happening very violently. And in at least my experience and my career in technology, more so than previous technology waves. But it is interesting when you just see the AI hammer applied indiscriminately to problems. But yes, the customer always has the answer. If you just listen to enough of them, they will tell you.
All right, I want to ask you a totally different set of questions briefly here. And you don't have to name names, by the way, but considering you work with franchises, have you had a personal, really bad experience with a franchise? Not your customer per se. Is there a customer experience that stands out to you that you'd be like, oh man, that needs to be fixed? That's terrible. I'm just curious to hear.
I mean, as a consumer, as in business,
as a consumer or a business, I mean, whichever way you consumed their service that you got.
For sure. I mean, I think everybody at one point or another has walked in. By the way, franchising is everywhere. You would be shocked that the franchise business model is across some 300 different industry verticals, and it is in everything. The stuff you frequent on a daily, weekly basis just to go about your life, most likely 60, 70% of it is a franchise. Right, even to the home services that come out to your house or anything. But so yes, of course, as a consumer, you have poor experiences, and I don't reflect that on the brand. As a consumer, I don't reflect that on the brand. It is to the point of why Woven exists. It is incredibly difficult to get all of your frontline employees that are actually implementing the brand experience to get them on the same page. They're human. They're going to have bad days. They're going to do things differently, and so. In franchising, it's exacerbated by the fact that you have the franchisor. It's like McDonald's. We typically think about McDonald's. Like McDonald's is the franchisor, and they have franchisees underneath them that actually own, the individual locations, or they own the license on them. And basically, the way it works is that if it's just your sandwich shop, right? You get to call all the shots. You're tightly connected to yourself all the way down to the front line because it's your sandwich shop. In franchising, it's the franchisor, that is sending stuff down to franchisees. Franchisees have to repackage that into whatever cobbled together tools and systems they're using to then hopefully get in the hands of this disconnected, disengaged frontline employee to then hopefully do what the franchisor wanted them to do to begin with. The number of steps is incredible. And the number of different systems in use is crazy. So Woven solves all that, right? Like we connected franchisor to franchisee all the way down the frontline employee, joint employer way, makes it nice and simple. The problem is that the traditional way of thinking about this allows for a lot of consumer issues. So of course I've had bad brand experiences, but that's not on the brand necessarily so much as maybe a poor franchisee runs that individual location or just that employee's having a bad day. On the supplier being in the industry, inside the industry segment, just like any industry, you have really great actors, and then you have the middle of the road, and you have bad actors, right? Like, I mean, franchising, and unfortunately, has earned some of its bad marks through various bad actors, and there are very few. But they've done poor things in terms of selling licenses to people that shouldn't have bought them, and it does hurt people. And franchising in general, the IFA, is the International Franchise Association, is really weeding that out. There's a lot of good stuff I won't get into right now with it. But ultimately, the industry as a whole, I will tell you, is amazing. There's a thing called franchise family that when you're coming into the franchise world, you're like, this is stupid. What is this about? And then you realize, you go to a couple conferences, you meet enough people, and you realize that the entire franchising world, the vast majority, is there to help each other. They're there to build America's small business and lift everybody up, right? And do so through a repeatable process, a brand that the consumer recognizes, and it's a beautiful thing. So with that being said, I don't have anybody to dog on a professional sense. There's definitely some bad actors that get pushed out.
No, I like how you've answered this, because you brought it back to the human element. Most bad experiences we have actually result with a bad actor at that moment. They might be having a bad day. They may have the worst day of their life, and you're the guy who called them next. And that sucks that you just had a bad experience. So I'm wondering, just briefly, do you have a favorite customer story that you've seen their success flourish and skyrocket because they started working with Woven?
Oh gosh. Yeah, I mean, so on the franchisor side, we are working with a brand right now, Perspire. They're probably about 100 open locations. They have another 200 plus sold licenses that they're planning to open. We started working with them around 50 locations, and it's been a fantastic relationship. So we actually help them standardize all of their learning, training, knowledge sharing, operational stuff, all the way down to the franchisee and frontline level. I think they would have grown without Woven, to be just perfectly honest. Like, we are but an enabler of their great team on their side. They have a great group of people at their corporate office. They're a great franchisor in the sense that they lean into their franchisees' success. They invest in their franchisees' success, which ultimately helps them be successful, right? Successful franchisees open more locations, increases royalties, franchisor wins. So that's been one example recently over the last year and a half. This particularly stands out. They're growing really quickly. They're actually opening locations and selling licenses. It's a fantastic story. A lot of our customer base is also just in the multi-unit operations world, right? And what I love to do is we go to a lot of these brand conferences. So you'll go to, I already mentioned Planet Fitness is a big customer of ours. We'll go to the Planet Fitness conference, or we'll go to, the Hand and Stone conference. A lot of these name brand franchise kind of concepts. And I love hearing the people we don't get to talk to on a day-to-day basis, which is the manager, the store manager that's just behind the scenes, that's just grinding away, and having them come up to be like, I love Woven. Oh my God, you save me so much time, and you do this and that. It's to have that impact, right? Even though we probably never directly talked to that person, we work with their district managers or the regionals or the corporate office or whatever, right? To roll out training and stuff. It's fantastic to hear that what we've done actually has impacted a life. It's always good to impact the bottom line in the P&L. We're all in business for a reason, right? But it's to actually hear those stories from the people that it's touching on a day-to-day basis, that's using it 6 times or more per day to do their job. That's really cool. That's super fulfilling for us to hear that unprompted, unscripted, they walk by the booth and they're like, oh my God, Woven, I use you every day. That's fantastic. So.
Oh yeah, I could be having the worst week, day, whatever. And if I meet one of those people and they're like, you've changed my life. Oh, I couldn't live without Quick. I'm on top of the world again. I'm like, yes, this is why I'm in business. This is why I started my company. Man, this is why I ask these questions. I mean, to hear that, because I think we all forget that feedback is so just enriching to us and our teams. And it's amazing when customers take the time to do that. Look, I have to wrap this up. And before I get to my last question, I want to ask, what is the best way for people to find and connect with you, Matt?
Yeah, absolutely. Probably get started at our website. So startwoven.com, STARTWOVEN.com. Or you can hit me up at matt.goebel@startwoven.com. Be happy to have a conversation if you're in the franchising or multi-location operations world.
Awesome. All right. So here comes one of my favorite questions to ask. Who has had the biggest impact on your leadership style and how you approach your role?
Yeah, I would have to go all the way back to my very first job out of college. I worked for a consulting company called Crow. Mindy Herman was the partner that was over our group at the time. And she happened to also be over the Caterpillar account that I worked on right out of college. And so we would spend a lot of time driving back and forth from Indianapolis to Peoria, Illinois, the most boring drive in the world. And Mindy during those drives would just mentor me. She would just give me knowledge nuggets that, 21, 22-year-old Matt probably wasn't fully appreciating at that time, but little things that, set in those first 4 years working closely with her has influenced everything I do. It's every business I've ever run. It's everything I approach from a customer standpoint. It's been profound. So yeah, I would have to say Mindy for sure.
I love hearing these stories. Honestly, it's my favorite question because people, that's what we're all about. That's why we're here. And to have those people who impact us in the best ways, I love hearing about it. So thank you for sharing. All right. I want to give a big thank you to Matt Goebel, CEO of Woven, for being on this episode of The Customer Wins. Go check out Matt's website at startwoven.com. We'll link to it in the episode notes. And don't forget to check out Quick at quickforms.com, where we make processing forms easier. I hope you enjoyed this discussion. We'll click the like button, share this with someone, and subscribe to our channels for future episodes of The Customer Wins. Matt, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks, Rich. Appreciate you having me.
Thanks for listening to the Customer Wins podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.